welcome to the AZ104 examination course, which is the course for the Azure administrators. The aim of this particular course is to take you through the practicals in passing as well as get you ready for the AZ104 examination. Now, to move forward, you go straight into the Microsoft Learn profile. That's your you can just search for the AZ104 on Google, and that will bring you into this page. This is usually the first page. Here you can see all information about the examination. You have to pass with a score of 700 out of 1000. You have a chance here to watch the exam preparatory guide, the exam preparatory videos, as well as look at the study guide. You also have access to the exam sandbox, which allows you to simulate the examination, see how the examination would be necessary for you. Okay, you can also take a free practice assessment to test how well or how ready you are for that particular examination. These are the skills measure. The skills measure simply shows those things that you have to learn ahead of the examination. You can see here that we have managed Azure identities and governance, taking about 15 to 20% of the examination. A higher percentage means you will see more questions from that area in the examination. A lower percentage means you might not see quite a lot of questions from there. But it's good to have an overview of everything. You can see here that we have deploy and manage Azure compute resources. Compute resources relate to virtual machines and the rest, and taking about 20 to 25% of the examination, as well as virtual networking. Most of these things are administrative tasks that would occur as an Azure administrator. So you also have the opportunity to work with your self-paced learning paths, or you choose an instructor-led learning path where somebody from Microsoft teaches you at a price. It is not free. So let's go into today's class. If you need a link to this, it will be shared on the group, on the Telegram group. Let's go into today's class so we can move ahead with the lecture. Now we are looking at the AZ104 Administer Identity, which takes 15 to 20% of the examination, as we have seen before. Literally, what the identity is talking about is that it allows you to work with users and groups and other identity solutions. We are going to look at how to configure the Azure Active Directory, as well as configure user and group accounts, and we also have a lab at the end of this class. Configure Active Directory. So yes, under this particular topic, we'll be looking at describing the AAD benefits and features, as well as all these other things listed here. In order to be fast with this class, we are going to be moving at a certain speed. So, what are the Azure Active Directory benefits and features? Now, Azure Active Directory is based on the cloud. It's an Active Directory based on the cloud. So it provides identity management that allows you to securely manage access to your resources and services for all of your users. So as you can see in this particular point, let me take the pen tool so we can see it clearly. We have an on-premise application here which uses Kerberos. The on-premise application in this point is using the Windows Server Active Directory. This is not on the cloud. These are on the cloud right now. These are applications on the cloud, and these use the Azure Active Directory to manage authentication as well as security. So that's the thing. This is the Active Directory on premise, and this is the Azure Active Directory. So that's what this diagram is trying to show to you. It provides application management, authentication, device management, and hybrid identity. That's basically what the Azure Active Directory does. Now we move into the next part. We are looking at the major concepts in Azure Active Directory. We have identity. When you hear identity, it's just talking about an object that can be authenticated. So authentication occurs on an object. That object becomes an identity. Now we have accounts. An account is an identity that has data associated with it. We have the Azure Active Directory account here. That's an identity that is created through Azure Active Directory or another Microsoft Cloud service. The cloud being the main point in here. And we have the Azure AD tenant or directory. That's a dedicated instance of the Azure Active Directory. So it's automatically created immediately your organization signs up for a cloud service subscription on Microsoft. So we also have the Azure subscription, and this is, I'm sure, very familiar with a lot of us, and that is what we use to pay for the cloud services. Now, comparing the Active Directory to the Active Directory domain services, comparing the Active Directory domain services to the Azure Active Directory. This is the one that runs on premise. This runs on the cloud. So Azure Active Directory is primarily an identity solution and is designed for HTTP and HTTPS communications. That means simply that it is designed for connections over the internet. That's basically what they are trying to say here. The Azure AD is obviously over the internet. It is queried using the REST API over the HTTP and HTTPS instead of the LDAP. So it's using the internet instead of the LDAP in this case. So it also uses HTTP and HTTPS protocols such as SAML, WS Federation, and OpenID Connect for authentication, and OAuth for authorization. Authentication is quite different from authorization, and we are going to look at that difference further up in the class. All of these are used instead of Kerberos. Now, Kerberos is used in the instance of the Active Directory, not the Azure Active Directory. The Azure Active Directory also includes federation services. We are going to talk about federation services as class moves on, and also many other third-party services such as Facebook. And Azure Active Directory users and groups are created in a flat structure. That is, unlike the Windows Server, there is no organization now units, no OUs or GPUs. The OUs are more like folders where you pack in users and then you manage all of them together simultaneously. And the group policy object allows you to apply policies to the objects within your Active Directory. All these are not used in Azure Active Directory, so that's the major difference you see in there. Now we have different Active Directory editions. This is the Azure Active Directory edition. I should really stop saying Active Directory. I kind of mix it up. So, we have different Azure Active Directory editions. We have the free. We have Microsoft 365 apps. We have Premium 1 and Premium 2. The difference between all these will be seen as we move on further with class, and it's actually very important because as you move on with your examination, you probably would see this kind of questions popping up where you have it's an instance where you have to pick between a premium subscription or a free subscription, and they ask you, why would you pick a premium subscription here over the free subscription? Well, you can see here that the free subscription allows 500,000 directory objects. It also has single sign-on capability, as well as core identity and access and business-to-business collaboration, but does not allow for identity and access for Office 365, and doesn't have premium features, doesn't have hybrid identities, doesn't have advanced group access, conditional access, identity protection, as well as identity governance. Meanwhile, the Microsoft 365 app subscription here has no object limits, is actually also having the single sign-on capability, and is also unlimited, and also has core identity and access, as well as business-to-business collaboration, and also identity and access for Office 365, but has none of the other features listed in here. So the trick here is that the free edition has B2B collaboration and all other things above it, but Microsoft 365 apps has the O365, which is easy to learn when you see 365 and 365, you can easily know that it has identity and access for 365. So that's the only thing that it uses to beat the free, apart from the number of objects. So the number of objects that can be created can be the user, the groups, devices, and all that. So the premium subscriptions, on the other hand, for P1, has every other thing down to conditional access, but does not support identity protection and identity governance. So if you have identity protection and governance, you would know that is the major difference between the P1 and the P2 licenses. So it has the P2 licenses offers all these, including the identity protection and identity governance. So we are at this point going to look at the configuration of the Azure AD device entities. This is actually very important, and this will be practicalized in class as we move on. We have three types. We have Azure AD registered devices, we have Azure AD joint devices, and we have the hybrid Azure AD devices. So the practicals are not happening right now, but will be done further in class. When we are looking at registered devices, we are looking at at the area of bring your own devices. For instance, you have an organization, and the organization supports you bringing in your own devices. It doesn't matter whether it's a laptop or your phone, it's your personal device, but you have to sign in to that company's Active Directory, so you will be able to access their features. The good example of this is when you want to access a company's Teams account, and they ask you to sign in with your personal email. When you're signing in with your own personal email, you are basically registering into the Active Directory. So registered devices sign in using a Microsoft account, and it's attached to an AD account granting access to resources. When you sign in, when you register to the Azure AD of a particular organization, then you'll be able to use some particular applications because you are registered to them. You'll possibly be able to access some of their services and all that. So a good example will be how you register your phone to your Google account. You register it to Google account. If you do not register your phone to the Google account using your email address, you would not be able to use Google services like Play Store. Every time you open Play Store, it says go and sign in or something, or Gmail. If you do not register that phone, if you try accessing Gmail on that phone, it will keep on asking you for login. It will keep on asking you to log in at that particular point. So we can see here that registered devices supports Windows 10, iOS, Windows 10 or higher actually. We have iOS, it supports the Android OS also, and the Mac operating systems. And now we have the other one, the Azure AD joint devices, that is intended for cloud-first or cloud-only organizations. Is useful for the organizations. When the organizations are using the AD joint devices, it's mostly used on the organization's properties, like the organization's own laptops. So it allows them to apply more security protocols on that particular device. They have more control on that device than they do on a registered device. So AD joint devices are used for only Windows 10 and higher devices. It doesn't support mobile phones or the rest, just Windows 10 and higher devices, operating systems. So you can only join to the Azure AD using the organizational account. A situation where you have the help desk or the guy in charge, the IT expert, having to sign you in into the company before you could use that particular device. That is a situation where that device is AD joined. So for you to join a device into the Active Directory, it has to be the guy in charge that does that particular thing. Now we move on to the hybrid Azure AD joint devices. In this situation, you have an Active Directory that is on premise, and you also have an Azure Active Directory. So, and you want to use group policy to manage the device. In that situation, you go ahead and use an hybrid Azure AD joint device. You can see here that it supports Windows 7, and higher devices. So we'll move on to the next one, which is the self-service password reset. What exactly is self-service password reset? This is a very important part of this class. Self-service password reset allows you to automatically reset passwords. Now, before, you have this staff. Let's say you have about 200 people in your company and you're the IT guy. These 200 staffs all have accounts and they're all working with it. People are mostly prone to forget their passwords. Now, if a user forgets his password, you have to be the guy to reset that user's password. In a situation where there's a large number of workers, it will be impractical to keep helping people reset their passwords, and especially in situations where they are, working on an AD registered device. Maybe they're using the bring your own device. Maybe they're working from home. It will be improper, or it will be a problem to go ahead and help them reset their password. So at this situation, it's better if you allow the self-service password reset to allow each user reset his own particular password. So that is what the self-service password reset is all about. You choose the number of authentication methods required and the methods available. We are going to work on this, and you can require users to register for the self-service password reset just like the MFA. We are going to do that in practical. So let's go ahead and reset a password using the Active Directory self-service password reset. So we continue, and here we are. We want to allow users work on their self-service password reset. We are going to do that right now. And yes, we are right here in this particular point. Yeah. So we have all of these methods in here. And let's go ahead and begin this particular lab. So first of all, you go into the Azure portal by clicking here. This link will be sent into the group also. And when you click on that, it should open a new tab. And click on the user you want to use. And we are going ahead to implement the self-service password reset right now. We go into the Active Directory. Okay. So now we are logged in. The next thing to do is okay, we have gone into the Active Directory and password reset. Now we are going into enable SSPR. Let's go into password reset. Password reset can be found right down here. That's password reset. You can choose to use the search button up there to get into password reset. So self-service password reset, take note that you have to put it for a particular group. That is, you have to enable it for a group. So you have to put any user that you want to use this particular ability. You have to put them in a particular group. So first of all, I would be creating a group that I can add into it. Let me see if I have a group in here. Okay, let's call this the cloud group right there. Now I'll be selecting that. Yep, and let's see that. Good. So we look at the authentication methods. What authentication methods are we going to use for this particular self-service password reset? You want to pick the number of authentication methods required. That is the number of, maybe you want multiple, you want that person to use maybe just a mobile number only, or you want that person to use a mobile number and maybe a security question, something of a mixture. You select one, you'll be able to select one of the methods, and if you select 2, that user must use both methods to sign in at that particular point. So I'll be using 2 for this, and the email should be fine as well as the mobile phone number, and that means the user would have to use both of them before he can sign in at this particular point. And since that was the default, I really have no changes in this. Now all these methods are, you could select a lot of them, so the user gets to choose whatever he wants to use among all of these. But I'll be sticking to just the email and mobile phone. Let me reduce this to 1 so this class doesn't take such a long time. Take note that if you go through the security questions, you have a number of questions that you can choose to require that the user is supposed to register. So that situation comes up most times when you want to have maybe a lot of questions and that person answers all those questions. But when the user wants to reset that password, he can choose. He has to answer maybe 3 of those questions, or at least 3 of the questions, to be able to reset the passwords. So let's go ahead and just turn off the security questions because I do not need that right now at this particular point. We're going to click on save to save that. Let's go ahead and look at registrations. What we are doing right now is password reset. We are enabling the SSPR, that's the self-service password reset option. So that's basically what we are doing right now. So we've already done that in here, and it is enabled for this particular selected user. So for this particular group, it is enabled presently. So let's go back in there and see exactly what else we want. Authentication methods, choose whether to require 1 or 2 authentication methods. Choose the authentication methods the users can use. Registration, specify whether users are required to register for the single service password reset when they next sign in. And specify how often users are asked to reconfirm their authentication methods. So if you are going on that registration, you want to say, okay, these users, do we want to force them to sign in to register for the password reset that we have already set up here on their next sign-in? That is, when any of them tries to sign in next, they have to register for the password reset. That's where they input the email that they want to use to get their passwords, as well as the phone number and all that. That's registration. So you pick yes if you want them to do that immediately they sign in, and no if you do not want them to bother. Now, as a security rule, there's 180 days here, but you can increase it. These days here are there to allow to give a space of time wherein the users have to reconfirm their authentication information again. That is, their emails might have changed within the next 180 days, or they might have changed their phone numbers or anything, just for them to reconfirm it, to show that they are still using those same details. So you could reduce it or increase it as you like. Once you are done with all of this, you just exit. The settings are already saved. Make sure you click on save, and immediately after that, everything else is done. Okay, we haven't looked at notifications yet. Notify users on password reset. Of course, you would like to notify them through their emails or their phone number that your password has successfully been reset. Notify all admins when other admins reset their password. That's if you want the admins to be aware that other administrators within the same company have reset their password. That's obviously going to be a no, because it will just be a full-time problem. We also have the customization option. That is, if you want the users to be able to maybe send an email to the help desk if they're having issues with signing in or resetting their password. At this situation, you click on yes, and you go ahead and put in the email address of that particular help desk. In this case, I'll just put in mine. And on-premise integration. Oh, please always remember to save. Always remember to save that, and that should actually configure everything we have on the password reset. Now this particular URL for this self-service reset exercise will be sent to the group, so everyone will have to do this particularly on their own. This will, I hope, as it will show a step-by-step way by which you can work with this. Always remember that you need a group. You need to put them within a group. You can't apply self-service password reset to a user, particularly just a user. You have to apply it to a group. So that means you have to create a group the next time you are trying to access the self-service password reset. So that means you might have the users this way, but for you to be able to apply self-service password reset, it can only be applied on groups. So you will go ahead and create a group, or use a particular group. Like I already have these groups here from my previous classes, and just apply to everyone in that group. An application to everybody in that group. Everybody on that particular group. I have 2 members here, 2 users here. Everybody under this particular group will have the self-service password reset enabled for them. I would be expecting you to go through the exercise, and if you have any issues with it, please let me know. So let's go ahead and see the manage device identity with Azure AD Join and enterprise state roaming. We are going to come into that because I would want us to do this in an interactive class. This is just a class that is being pre-recorded, so everyone will have to go through each of the classes, and we are going to get it in a more interactive session. That way you'll be able to ask your questions, and we'll be able to discuss further and talk more on all of that. So let's look at configure user and group accounts as fast as we can. Users and groups accounts are very simple and straightforward. If you are configuring users, you also want to put them in groups, and you have to know how to work with all of those. And for this particular one, this is quite practical. We are going to be doing the practical instead. So all of the users in an organization must have an account. Generally, each user must have an account, and what these accounts are for is for authentication and authorization. Like I said, there's a difference between authentication and authorization. The example, this question usually comes out in the exam, so there's a difference between authentication and authorization, and we are going to discuss that in class. Now, when you're managing a user account, you have to be a global administrator or a user administrator. Like the account you see me using previously is a user administrator account. That was why I could create users and give those particular users some abilities. So it also, your user profile can contain your picture, your job, your contact info. Deleted users can also be stored for 30 days. So if you notice the question I sent in the exam, in that test I sent to the group, the little test I sent to the group, this particular question was one of it. So deleted users can be restored for 30 days. Can be restored within 30 days. After 30 days, it's off. So sign-in and auditing log information is also available. You can see when the user signed in, how long he stayed online, and all those things. So also we'll be performing the bulk account updates. In this situation, I will be needing you all to fill a particular CSV file. It's going to be practical. We're going to do it together, and you must be signed in as a global administrator or user administrator to do this. And this is where I create the accounts for everyone. We'll be doing that as soon as we get together. And also we'll be creating group accounts. There are 3 types of group accounts. We have the assigned, we have the dynamic user, and the dynamic device. The group types we have are the security group types as well as the Microsoft 365 groups. As you can see, this is a group type. This is the security group type. which is here, and we have the membership type, which is mostly assigned in here. We'll be performing all these operations on this particular class. So we'll also be assigning licenses to users and groups. Licenses are very important. You need to know about licenses. Very much important. We discussed them previously when we went up there. Let me see if I can get it real fast. Yes. Now we're discussing licenses at this point. This is premium license, the free license, the Microsoft 365 applications license. The licenses are actually very important. You would learn how to assign licenses to the users. We can see that Azure AD comes as a free service, and the P1 or P2 license gives you additional functionality. So you have additional services like the Office 365. Those are paid cloud services, and Microsoft paid cloud services require licenses. So licenses are actually paid. Some licenses are paid, and each user or group will require a separate paid license. That is, each of the users or each of the groups will require a separate licenses. So the administrators use the management portals and PowerShell commandlets to manage the licenses. This will be your job, and you would be using the management portal, that is the Azure portal, as well as PowerShell to manage your licenses. So we'll be working with all of these. We'll look at how to license, how to assign a license, how to do all that. Also, we'll look at administrative units, how to create administrative units, as well as populate the administrative units with the Azure AD users or groups. We'll also look at creating a role in Azure, as well as adding the IT members to the role. So you notice here that Azure AD Premium 1 and P2 each are privileged for the role administrator or global administrator. So we are going to see how each of these work as we move forward in the interactive session. So at this point we are going to be doing the demonstration. We are not doing it today on this video because nobody is here as at present. This is a pre-recorded video. I want a situation where we can all discuss together and go for the sessions together. So we'll be doing all of this using the sandbox, and I hope we are all together in the next class. So thank you very much, and we would meet later.